Is with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Christine, yeah,
Yes.
could you get the mic a little closer?
Yes. So we'll start with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, and I'm not sure, did everyone get the minutes from the last meeting just now?
I got mine 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I saw the email go out to the office, but not to the board. I thought it did, but I couldn't find the email, and Bruce called me at 6:30-ish and
I
said,
couldn't either.
yeah, it sounds like it didn't go through for some reason, Olivia. No, it would have been January 9th.
I think it went out, but if it didn't go out.
It did go to the office. They did get their copy because I saw that one, but I didn't see one to the board.
Come on.
Don't do it again. We might have to fire you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody, if I screwed up.
So we should probably, they're pretty lengthy. I'm wondering if we should perhaps table that to the next meeting. So that we're not,
I would come to the next meeting to deal with the minutes. I
okay,
think that's only fair. But then I might have to come to the meeting after that to get them approved. But I would.
no, you shouldn't need to do that.
I would, well, yeah,
But-
because I would write all the amendments. Because it would be on my computer.
Right.
So I don't mind doing that. I mean, that's only fair. But if I screwed up.
If you're willing, that's fine. We don't currently have a replacement for you, so I got it. Okay, so we will do that. We will table the minutes then to the next meeting, so everyone has a chance to look at it. I don't know, I think we might have spelled, it was a gentleman that was here. I think we might have spelled his name wrong. Leonard's, is that, anybody know? Yeah. Did you get a copy of the draft minutes from the last meeting?
I did.
Okay. I'll check on that then. It's like, that was the only thing I thought it was Leonard, but yeah. I think we have it as Leonard in our minutes, although we might have made changes after that, but. Okay. Okay.
ART as in Thompson, D as in zebra.
Okay, and then we'll move on to public comment. Does anyone in the audience have a public comment? Please use the microphone.
No switch.
On line, not muted.
I have a question, under number 3, the Southwest Regional Planning Regulatory Review Invest New Hampshire grant. You call it regulatory review. I noticed in the Charrette report, they identify 3 possible grants. One is called the Needs Analysis and Planning. One is called the Regulatory Audit.
Yep.
And one is called the Regulatory Development.
Right.
Is this fall under any of those, or it's no
It's
total?
the first 2 that you read.
It's the first 2.
Yep.
So,
So we called it the regulatory review because that's what SWRPC has called it in the past. And when we started this process, we were applying for a municipal technical assistance grant for a regulatory review. So it's just to carry over that agenda item, that transition to the Invest New Hampshire.
okay, so I just want to be clear that the purpose of these audits are to promote housing development in Temple. That's what it says under the Charrette.
That's not our intention when we applied for the grant, was to not to necessarily to promote housing. We had identified a lot of errors or outdated regulations in our zoning, as well as some updates that needed to be made because of the census data. So that falls under the needs and analysis. There's also money that was given to SWRPC to do a housing needs analysis that's required by law. It's a regional housing needs analysis. So that falls under that as well.
Right, and it says clearly for the first part, for the purpose of supporting increased housing supply. So,
Well, that is the
also-
Charrette document. That is not the application that we submitted
okay. And who has that application?
in the office.
In the office.
That she has a copy. Are there any other public comments or questions?
Christine, do you plan to allow public comments when you get to the ADU question?
I'm not really sure yet. I have some new information from legal review, so it may not be the time to do that tonight, but there will be more opportunities for public comment moving forward.
Thank you.
Did you just say there's no public comment on your ADU?
I don't believe there'll be public comment later on tonight unless there are some clarifying questions that we have as a board for members of the audience that asked questions last time. But when we present something for the public to review, that will be the time for public comment. We don't have anything new to give you tonight, other than, as I said, I have some new information from legal review. So is there any other public comment? Okay. So on the Doug Guy minor subdivision, I don't have anything new to report to that other than I've contacted the Registry of Deeds and have not heard back from them yet to find out about that check that was returned. That'd be great. Thank you, Keith. On the Rowe Thompson subdivision, all the documents were signed. We received everything that we needed, and Keith will take that over to the Registry of Deeds. The notice of decision and the findings of fact were all sent to the applicants either electronically and or in the mail. And there's copies of all that on the website now too, on the Temple website under the case files. So under SWRPC regulatory review, Invest New Hampshire grant, we did receive a letter of interest from SWRPC. And I can't remember if I shared any of this at the last meeting, but SWRPC has seen two staff members resign in the last month. So they currently do not have the staff to work with us at this time. So we received a letter from them saying they are interested in working with us, but they can't commit right now. So we do need to make a decision. Do we want to wait and see if they become available in the next few months, if they're able to hire staff? Or do we want to put out an RFP and see if there are other consultants that might want to work with us? That's another option. They did put out a list of planners who have gone through the vetting process to work with towns. There's, I think, 2 that are local-ish. Milford and Ivy Van is the other one in Peterborough. Carol Ogilvy also expressed an interest in helping us, but not as the lead. She is semi-retired, so. Yes, we can use the grant. We're not locked into using SWRPC. However, we submitted a dollar amount based on quotes from SWRPC. So we are limited by that dollar amount. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we may not end up having applicants since we already have a dollar amount. So we may not have that many options. I understand there are other towns that are in this same situation. So.
Can we ask that that microphone be moved down to Keith?
Oh.
We cannot hear.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I was just asking that the grants that we have can actually be used to pay a third party. It doesn't have to be SWRC.
So I'm wondering what members of the board are feeling about this, how to move forward. Any? We're kind of stuck. I mean, I did try to put the pressure on when I was at SWRPC last week, but
Wait for a spring date and then make a date at time then if they don't get back to us.
do we want to revisit this then maybe? And I mean, I know they posted the positions, so we can,
It would
That's
be
an
nice to
option.
have representation from Southwest Regional,
yeah,
to walk us through the process. Although that being said, Ivy Van and Carol Ogilvy, if, it would be worth maybe talking to them
mm-hmm,
and seeing what their thoughts were.
okay,
But it would ultimately be better, I think, to wait for,
for SWRPC.
yeah.
Do other people have any
What do you think?
thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I can invite Ivy to come and speak, or I can have a conversation with her in a couple of weeks.
Invite her in.
Okay,
Yeah, that'd be great.
okay.
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I said invite her in. That'd be great.
So the Housing Academy starts tomorrow. Keith, did you sign up? That's also part of this grant. It's to lead community engagement forums around housing.
I did. I'm going to look for the recording for it and go through
Okay.
that.
So I'm going to miss the in-person one on the 25th. Are you going to that? Okay. Okay, well, I'll be on the call tomorrow as well, but I'll miss the one next week. Okay. Okay. So under Planning Board Clerk Responsibilities 2023. So I just made a short list there, very short list of duties, but Olivia and I have not had a chance to meet. We had to reschedule our meeting for last week. And so I guess the thought was, I don't know if you want to say anything, Olivia, but the thought was to perhaps form just maybe one or two people can sit down with her to sort of debrief. I think, Olivia, you had some suggestions for the next person to come in. Does that sound reasonable to have a small group, or do you?
Yeah, I think it should be at least two people.
Okay,
And George, can I have the mic? Oh, not mine. You can have yours.
Test. What was I saying?
having two people.
Yeah, at least two people, and possibly two people who you would consider having access to the shared drive I have with Carol. Because I think there's reason for there to be at least one board member having access to that file as well, that Keith helped me create, and I am finding it incredibly helpful to get information into the town office where it's safe from my computer. And Carol has access to everything I have access to. I have brought with me the job description, which I discovered about a year into the job. And my job looks nothing like that job description. And it will highlight to the board the amount of work that has not been done over the past 3 years, because it's written for a person who's in the office, who can do a whole lot more than I can do from home. I don't know whether you want to have the board take a look at that, just so they together have, all of you have an idea of what's not happening. Or whether you just want the group of 3 to do that.
We can share it with everyone, or we can.
Yeah, I'll volunteer to be one of those 3.
Okay.
I have copies of that list that I can pass out tonight if you want to take a look at them. It's up to you.
Sure.
Okay, and I'm also putting together a book that tells my successor what's in box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. What's in file drawer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. What's in the plat files that I know about. One that Keith and I went on hands and knees downstairs to get them organized, and I went hands and knees upstairs to get one of them organized, which took hours, which is part of the reason why I'm retiring, because my little old body just can't do that. All right.
Thank you. So Olivia, this is something Betsy created, is that correct?
I don't actually know the answer to that since I can't talk to Betsy,
Okay,
but between Betsy and Alan might know who created it, but it does look like Betsy's job description.
okay. I think this is great for all board members to have and have an idea, and it will help. Does anybody else want to work with Keith on the job description, or?
I would love to volunteer you for the job. Well, and I'll tell you
I
what,
don't have a problem doing it. I'm just not going to be here for.
well, yeah, I know, but some of this work I can't do because the emails don't come to me. They come to you or they go to Carol. So I don't know what came in when, and I can't keep the list that the state requires
Right.
of the dates for all the documentation because I don't have the information. So we have to rethink that, and you know better than anybody else what that looks like at this point, I think.
So as far as the emails, you don't get the Temple Planning Board emails?
I get the Temple Planning Board emails, but a lot of people send stuff directly to
Right.
you and they send stuff directly to Carol, and I don't get those.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I do try to CC you on them when I respond, but yeah. Or CC the Temple Planning Board email, I guess is what I do normally. Okay. So I can work with Keith. Like I said, it just will be a couple of weeks before I can get back to that. Olivia, did you still want to meet tomorrow?
I think it would be better that the three of us meet together.
Okay,
If there are going to be three of us, we might as well all three be in that conversation.
okay. I don't think Keith is available tomorrow, so,
Thursday or Friday.
We'll wait until you come back.
okay.
It's fine.
I can work with you in the meantime, just do a draft or nope, nope,
I need to save my hours.
understood, understood.
Is there anything else you wanted to add or?
Yeah, I have a lot I want to say, but I don't know if you want me to do it now or at the end of the meeting.
Okay,
I'd prefer to do it at the end of the meeting.
yeah, let's do that. And if I could just ask planning board members to not leave at the very end. I think she has just some personal comments to share.
Wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, that's fine. So along those lines, or maybe we can talk about this at the very end, but I won't be checking my email while I'm away. So I need a volunteer to sort of cover and also do the agenda for the next meeting. I mean, I can draft something, but if it, a lot of times things come up in between meetings that would need to be added. So that would normally fall to you, Bruce, I think, as vice chair. Are you okay with that if we have the?
Yeah, if you draft something up and.
And if you
yeah.
need to add something, it
Mhm.
can be added. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions or anything for? Just for the record, Olivia, thank you so much for all your hard work over the past 3 years. I certainly don't know what I'd do without you, so just thank you very much, and I'm sure we all appreciate everything you do. Okay, we'll move on. I don't have anything new on the flood maps. I don't know if anybody else has looked at them and has any questions, concerns. Okay. And Murray is not here, which actually means, by the way, I should formally appoint Russ to serve as a full member for votes. We haven't voted on anything yet, so it should be okay there. And tax map updates, it's kind of just, we wait until after town meeting to do anything with that. And the master plan resources inventory, I think, Scott, since you're here, was there a deliverable coming up there? Weren't they going to present something? Okay. Keep us posted. Thanks. I know the maps, the draft maps came out, but I thought I saw an email about a report coming later this month. Maybe. Right, right. Okay, well, we'll just touch base in February. Okay, so the next up is the Charrette recommendations. Bruce had asked for this to be on the agenda to sort of take a look through at what came up and see if there was anything. Bruce, did you want to say something about this? The charrette?
I didn't really prepare anything. I guess we had the charrette, the results with the charrette, ironically came back a couple days after our hearing on ADUs. And there's a lot of information in there in regards to ADUs and other housing options, possibly for Temple. So the timing wasn't good, but it's fine because we're not rushing through the process of any zoning changes for this year. We want to just use things like the charrette and working with Southwest and input from townspeople to folks to come up with something that will make it good for everybody. So the charrette, I just thought I thought tonight we would start at the beginning of the housing part, because really, the other parts of the charrette don't, the town parking and highway garage and things like that they're not in our purview on the planning board. But housing in zoning is. So I thought that it would be nice for the board and anybody in attendance that hasn't seen this report to actually see what they came up with. And so I guess it's kind of like
I think it's 16 is what we thought we'd start with, right? Somewhere around here. I have a printout too, if you want to.
Yeah, so I guess this is where it starts right here. 6 is that?
Well, 16, it's kind of.
Yeah, so like I said, I didn't really prepare anything, and if you haven't read this yet, then it might not make a lot of sense, but basically the charrette had come up with some of these ideas of housing that they've seen in other neighborhoods in New Hampshire that have worked. And mostly, if you read this, I don't know if you want to take the time to read some of it, but there's some key points here. It's about affordability is some of it. A lot of it talks about ADUs and how they're not something that you have to be fearing a developer to come in and do, or a builder. ADUs are done by typically a homeowner that is trying to add housing for their children or their parents, or maybe it's extra income. But it talks about this throughout the whole report. And it shows examples in Temple of exactly that, 2-3 unit buildings. And so I just thought that we could, those, you know, so like I said, I wasn't really prepared to say anything, but they're, as you read it, they're saying right here, no additional acreage will be required regardless of the size of the ADU. The Charrette group of people were not big fans of the double the lot size. They were also not a big fan of the owner occupied,
Right.
which I know we've kind of like we've wanted. I think the board has all decided we'd like to be able to have owner occupied for a lot of reasons. So
Mhm.
so they're not what the Charrette has come up with isn't exactly everything that we might want for us, but it's it definitely needs to be on the table throughout this year when we keep our discussions moving forward about housing and zoning. This is, you know, a key,
Mhm.
can be a key component to
Mhm.
what we want to discuss, but.
Does anybody else want to comment or? I would just say the community advisory is meeting Thursday, and it seems like this is a good point to think about scheduling a housing forum, a public forum, that we start at the beginning and talk about affordable housing and what options are on the table and what people might be interested in. So it feels like this is a good, you know, introduction, I guess, to that to start with. So I would suggest that that be the next step is a housing forum.
I agree. I actually ran into Jessica Hip the other night, and I had mentioned to her that, and if, for those of you who don't know who Jessica is, she's works with Christine on the advisory
Yep.
Committee here in town. And one of their tasks that they've taken on was housing in Temple. So she is willing to put, has put some time and was willing to put a lot more time into helping us, the board, work on presentations and forums. So I have her here, housing forum outline
Perfect.
from, I think either you or Jessica.
That-
So it
that's-
is the next step for us, I think. I guess the goal would be to not wait till next Thanksgiving, November, December,
Right.
to present something to the town, to actually have something this spring, late spring, summer, actually have some input from the town and from these other, you know, the Charrette, and come up with some ideas of some things we want to present to the voters that works for everybody. And it might not be perfect, but at least it'll be an attempt. And I think we'll know if it's, we'll have a sense if it's way out in left field. I think it's been a long time coming though. And I think, you know, we've been talking about it for several years, and I think there's some things we can do. It's if you go by what the Charrette says, we should have 4-unit buildings, 3-unit buildings, duplexes, no minimum acreage size. I mean, that's all extreme.
Right.
So even if we took half of that as gospel, which I don't even know if we'll do that, but it's just a good guide. But we definitely have some work to do.
Well, it's a starting point, and also to gather reactions from people in the community on what the recommendations are.
So the forums is that's where we need to start.
Yep. So for target dates, probably April, May, just because you don't want to do it once school's out.
Yeah, I think we should jump right on it.
Yep.
1st of April, maybe have our first forum.
Yep.
Another one 1st of May. If we did a third one, do a third one in June. Just, it's really, we don't have a lot on the agenda for the year.
Right.
That's gonna at the moment.
At the moment, right, who knows what, I mean,
So I just think that we should keep bringing in champions on the topic, like Carol Ogilvy's and Ivy Vans and George
Mhm.
Regan's and
yep,
we don't have, my dad always said, Temple's unique and this will be used against me right now for saying this, but we don't have to copy every other town. We're special for a reason. So we don't have to do what Mason does or what Wilton does, but sometimes it's nice to look at other towns and see what works for them. Might not work for us, but it's nice to look at other towns
mhm, sure.
that are similar to us and see how they do it. Yeah, I guess that's all I can say.
Mhm. Anyone else? Okay,
What's outrageous? Connie, I just heard the word outrageous. I just, I think I'm being pretty good. I don't know what's outrageous.
you inviting?
I am inviting, I heard an audience member say that what I was
Okay.
speaking was outrageous, so
Yeah.
I want it to be on YouTube and every video
Thank
there
you.
is, because I don't know what I said that was outrageous.
I think that, I'm going to speak for myself, but I've heard many similar comments. That this was not, the charrette did not reflect what the people of Temple wanted. It reflected what New Hampshire plan wants and how we're getting led into this. I would hope you don't see this as the Bible now, because I don't think it reflects anything other than people that live in Manchester or Bedford or some of those towns. I mean, this has nothing to do with Temple. And I guess when I hear you talk about it, like this is now what we're going to do, and we're going to, rework our master plan. I'm concerned. The direction is concerning. And I would like very much, I appreciate the thought of having a forum. I think that's necessary. I hope it is truly an open forum where people can speak.
Did you want to respond or?
Yeah, no, I just said that we would have, we should have 2 or 3 forums. And a forum is public involvement. That's all what a forum is all about, really. It's not a board meeting, it's a public involvement. And just to reiterate what I said about the charrette was that they had a lot of good ideas, but there's a lot of ideas that aren't going to work for Temple. And we'd be lucky if we even use half of their ideas or I said something to that effect.
Yep.
And so that's what I said was that, a lot of their ideas aren't going to work for us. So yeah.
I think what set off the outrageous comment or whatever that word was, Bruce, was your reference to building quadruplexes and triplexes in Temple, which was, I understand it's in the report, but it's totally contrary to what residents said during the.
Yeah, no, that you misheard me.
I will confirm that
you-
Bruce didn't say that we were considering it. Said it's mentioned in the charrette, and obviously many of these things won't work.
Thank you for your opinion.
Thank you for your opinion. So I think we'll get more public input when we have the public forums. I mean, that's what it's about, is gathering other opinions. So.
Yep.
On to the ADU ordinance. Unless anyone else wanted to speak on that. So we had a lot of public input at the hearing at the last meeting. And lots of things to think about and research and consider. Did anyone want to kick that off? Any comments, or shall I go right to the conversation I had with the attorney today? Anybody? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when you look at the minutes, I would just say that I tried to capture sort of common areas of concern rather than poor Olivia doing a complete transcript, especially since the recording is available to people to look online. It was hard to hear some of the comments, both from board members and the public. So getting an accurate word for word was nearly impossible, I would say. So I just tried to capture the common themes just based on my notes. And if I've missed anything, please let me know. But I was just going to start with, so I shared with the attorney our proposed changes with some questions based on questions and input we had at the last meeting. So starting, let's see, so in terms of what is a permitted use in our district, it says in our zoning ordinance, buildings may be erected, altered, or used for one-family year-round dwellings and farms. And that's true for all of the districts. We define dwelling, we define dwelling unit, we define family, and we define accessory dwelling unit and multiple dwelling. This is also a lot of other definitions as well, but relative to this section of the zoning ordinance. So one of the things that came up was under multiple dwellings 7.30. And I think I have extra copies of the zoning from the last meeting. If people, does anyone want to see? Yeah. Let me see what I have. Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of them. There's a few different items in there. Well, you can bring up the proposed one from the last meeting. And yeah, and then maybe the current, I think it might be called 2021. Yeah. Which document? Oh, Joe, what's his? Yes, thank you, Joe Driscoll. Thank you. So one of the questions, these are my notes. This is not something I sent out. So one of the questions that came up was about the intent of the ordinance. So just for clarification, so our intent is probably listed maybe under 7.30 towards the bottom. And I don't know, I mean, this was crafted, I guess, in 2017. So I don't know what that version of the planning board's intent was or their process in coming up with that language. But I looked at the intent from the state legislature, and how they word it is: the intent of the law is to expand the supply of housing in New Hampshire communities without further land development, as well as to encourage efficient use of existing housing stock and infrastructure, and provide affordable housing options in communities. So that was the state legislature's intent when they enacted this law. So we could use some version of that if we want to. It doesn't change anything legally in the document. He said it's really it's irrelevant in terms of challenges, but just wanted to acknowledge that question was asked at the last meeting. So that was the state legislature's intent. Let's see. I'm going to come back to that. The owner occupied question. We suggested putting in the owner of record of the principal dwelling unit must reside in either the principal dwelling unit or the accessory dwelling unit. And then we got a public comment that perhaps it should say one of the dwellings shall be the principal domicile of the property owner. And legal review said we want to be careful about using that word domicile. He would actually discourage use of that word because it tends to be political in nature. kind of quite controversial at the moment. And he also said should consider that if we're going to say this, we should, in terms of enforcement, add some criteria that's more specific, like how would we have an owner prove that they were the occupant of one of the dwellings? And you could say voter registration, automobile registration, or similar indicators. So, but he recommended being as specific as possible so that it is enforceable. Let's see, on the square footage thing, he agreed that language was really confusing. Changing the word to primary, he thought was a good idea, which we talked about at our last, or maybe it was the meeting before, instead of saying, what did we say, combined? And then he said, there's nothing wrong with just saying minimum and maximum square footage, just keeping it that simple. But he did ask, is there anywhere else in our zoning ordinance where we define measurements? If we do, then we could be consistent and use the same language. And he said also we should look at building codes, because some of these, like the basement one in particular, defining something as a usable basement is really hard. You can't, it's, if you can walk in there, is it usable? So he didn't see how that was really going to be effective. So he recommended this whole section needs to either be overhauled or just really simplified. One of the comments was about the exterior or the appearance, or a couple of comments I think were about that. So I suggested using language that I think was in that guide from the state. The accessory dwelling unit shall be consistent with the principal dwelling in appearance, design, colors, and materials. And he said, again, do you regulate the appearance of single family homes? And I said, no, we don't. And he said, well, again, I don't think this is something that is really enforceable. It's inconsistent. We could say something like resembles a single family home, something like that. We could be specific about parking in the rear. I mean, there are some other sort of tools that we could use. But that's a tricky one and could leave us open to legal challenges. So the septic and water thing, I think, was not a big deal. One of the other questions that came up was about curb cuts. I think that was Kathy's. I'm not sure if she's online, but so in our driveway regulations, we do limit curb cuts to 1 per residential lot. So that is already in our zoning ordinance. However, there is an exception where the road agent or the planning board has determined that a second cut is warranted. And one of those exceptions is for a detached ADU, but it would have to be approved by the road agent in order for that to go through. Let's see. He agreed with removing 7A.70. On the question about PRDs, he said he needed more time to research that. When he saw that, he wasn't sure that was legal, how we have it now. And he also thought that the subsequent condominium conveyance of any accessory dwelling unit separate from that of the principal dwelling unit shall be prohibited, that should be its own number, not combined with 7A.90. So, on the detached, so most of
You know
this,
what, and I could just comment on that.
sure,
The funny part is that we just a few years ago added that language. It was voted on by the voters
yeah,
and it was reviewed by an attorney.
yeah, I remember that was 2021.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, so.
Yeah, he said he was going to look into it further.
Yeah.
So he may come back with you're fine with that. But he said, I don't know why those were combined. That seemed really odd. So let's see, moving on to detached. same on the square footage. He also said he's not sure that our requirement on lots that are at least twice the minimum lot size for the district, he's not sure that's legal. And the reason he feels that way is because right now the statute says by right, anyone that has a single family home can have an accessory dwelling unit. And which is what we allow, but someone could choose to have a detached by right versus having an attached by right. So he's not, as I said, he's not sure because it does say that in that the ADU that we could limit the lot size. But his thing was, if you have to be consistent. If you're doing it for detached, you should do it for attached or vice versa. And it is required, and in the law, it says you cannot require additional lot acreage for an accessory dwelling unit. So this was quite contradictory
In the RSA.
in the RSA.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have that right.
Yep, there you go. So
What number is that?
that is 7B.10. Oh, what? That's in our zoning. Let me look. Yeah, we have to allow at least one. No additional dimensional requirements. I think that might be referring to the square footage, though. Any municipal regulation applicable to single-family dwellings shall also apply to the combination of a principal dwelling unit and an accessory dwelling unit, including but not limited to lot coverage standards and standards for maximum occupancy per bedroom, consistent with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We can require adequate parking. That's it.
So by RSA, we can't say.
That's his interpretation. So.
But here,
Right,
under 674-73. Detached.
oh, let's see, that must be on the last. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, it says only regarding detached ADUs may a municipality require an increased lot size, but it is not. 674-73.
Right.
I don't know how to. I have this one. This is Appendix C. Oh, so probably the second page there on the RSA.
So I read this that we are within what, when we wouldn't have, when we adopted detached accessory dwelling units, we chose to double the lot size.
Yep.
And it says,
And it
from
says
what
that
I
we-
read here, that's within the law.
Yep.
It's within the law, right? And we had it reviewed by legal, before we brought it to the town and voted on it. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm sure,
Mhm.
it's, we didn't just pull that number. We didn't just come up with that.
Right, so I don't know if this is in addition to, or if
Hmm.
this is, if they choose one. So it's unclear.
Yeah.
So, on the manufactured housing question, he also said he's not sure that's legal either. The manufactured housing, that's 7B.20. And he's going to look into that as well. The other big thing, he said is, we talked about, it was suggested that we look at special exceptions for detached ADUs or for all ADUs. And he said, what you do for one, you should do for the other. And from what I've heard, conditional use permits are the better option, and that's from planners and SWRPC and looking at other towns. In one town I looked at in particular is New London. They do a conditional use permit, and that is approved by the planning board. So it's be similar to a site plan review process. Abutters weigh in, there's a hearing, there's an application. Plans are required, although not to be filed with registry of deeds. So.
And this is in regards to non-conforming.
No, this is period, all.
Mhm. But it could be for just non-conforming.
It can't be for non-conforming.
No, it can't.
Nope.
Oh.
It could be a variance, but what he said is we have nothing in our zoning ordinance right now, as far as I know, on non-conforming lots. So he said that should be a separate ordinance. You have to be really careful about putting in special requirements for non-conforming lots because it affects property values. And you don't want to be discriminatory. So we could do things if we did a non-conforming lot ordinance. That's where some things like additional setbacks would play in, location on the property, to protect the neighbors, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But we'd have to do that for single family homes as well as ADUs. It has to be consistent.
Mhm. And the conditional use through the planning board would be better
Then a special
than a
exception.
special exception through the ZBA for what reasons again?
It keeps the control here in the planning board versus,
Okay.
yeah. So, in other words, in theory, we would be more familiar with the intent of the zoning and what the requirements are. It's an easier process. Essentially, it's a site plan review.
Are there any hard requirements? For instance, site plan, you may say,
Can you use, yeah, the microphone, yeah. Thank you.
on a site plan, you may have to say like the slope of the driveway must be this, and you must have a number of parking. Is it something hard like that, or is it more like, we don't know if the neighbors will like it, like in the zoning board, you can,
No, it's just what we have in our ADU zoning ordinance. So is there off-street parking? What's the square footage? Does it, does the septic meet the requirements and the water? And, it's just what's in our ordinance.
so it's a
So
checklist review.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, there's no really, I don't like this in my neighborhood, or this is gonna be obnoxious, or any, which sometimes shows up at a special exception or variance where the public gets to ask those questions to have some input. This would just be more or less, if you meet all the checklist requirements, we give you the,
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
there's still a public hearing where the abutters can weigh in, but if they meet the requirements that are in our zoning
we're hard
ordinance,
pressed to say no.
right?
Okay,
And it would be easier to address the appearance issues during that process as well.
okay.
The aesthetics. So there was a lot to all of that. And I think, based on what I learned, my recommendation would be that we not move forward with a second hearing for this March, because there are some things here that are going to need a little bit more time. Yeah, okay, a lot more time to review. And put some effort into before presenting anything for public input or public feedback. So in terms of process, I think you touched on this earlier, Bruce, we could start working on this now, or we could, it's the calendar in general should be spring. We set out what we want to do for the year.
Yeah.
You can gather public input in the summer and probably into the fall, and then have your hearings fall and into January, once you have a final product to present. Which is kind of what we started, but then we had multiple applications coming in the summer and the fall, which.
Time gets away
Yeah,
quick.
so that is the ideal formula, but so I guess the sooner the time is put in, the better. Especially if we're gonna take on bigger regulatory review with SWRPC down the line. So my recommendation would be to continue to work on this. But we won't have anything ready for March.
Well, I will, if you want me to, I will work with Jessica and put together a forum, our first
Okay.
forum. Probably we'll shoot for April.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
And on the ADUs, we'll,
Does the board want me to present it to you guys first, so you could, put your 2 cents in, or do you want Jessica and I just to? I mean, would you like to see a rough draft or something?
I mean, well, no, there's plenty of meetings before then, so.
Yeah, a couple,
Yeah,
a few
right.
before April, a few. It's only,
Yeah.
only a couple, yeah. 3. Yeah. So that's what we'll do. We'll come up with a draft and then
Are you-
present it to the board, and then the board can add or take away whatever they want,
so are you thinking that you would include ADU recommendations in that as well, or is that a separate? Like, do you want us to have something ready to present for that forum for ADU?
I think it'd be more of a broad.
Okay,
I think ADUs could be, I don't know that we would be, I think in fairness to the townspeople, I think it should be a more broad topic, ADUs just being part of it,
mhm,
at least for the first forum,
okay.
that we're, so, I just think that would be.
So we'll stick to the ADU specific details in a planning board.
Well, I think a lot of people might be lost if we jump right on the ADUs. A lot of people don't know what an ADU is.
Sure.
They don't even know that we have an ADU. So I think if we be more broad about just zoning in general in the first forum, like what we are, what we offer now, 3 acres and 5 acres on the mountain, and
Right,
kind of almost like a review of our zoning as it stands today. Start with that, like first, elementary.
yep,
101 temple zoning forum.
Yep.
And then we can talk to, we have PRDs. What's a PRD? We have ADUs. What's an ADU?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, but I asked how many PRDs we have in town. Do you know how many?
PRDs?
Yeah,
4, 5?
do you know how many houses?
15,
Yeah.
24.
So this is from Avatar, so we know it's not a hard and fast rule, but I found 6 listings for PRDs.
It's close.
Yep. I did have a question on one of them, Brown Road, do you know? It's 5B-39 and it says it's a 6-lot subdivision, but it's listed with the other PRDs. So I don't know if it's actually a PRD or it doesn't specify that it is. It just says it's the subdivision. Anybody know?
Brown, right? I know where
can
she's
look.
talking. I just don't, I wasn't on the board
Yeah,
then.
I
So
can look into it.
yeah. So how many houses did it involve?
I don't know.
Oh, because of that, you don't know. Okay.
6.
Where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Brown and it's over near Hilltop.
Hilltop.
Yeah, it's not Hilltop. It's across the road
Right.
from that.
It's across the road.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and just as a point of information on the non-conforming lots. Let's see, in the village, there's 7. And by the way, a couple of those are multifamily already. And there's 11 that are conforming. In the Mountain District, there's 2 that are non-conforming. Oh, there it is. 2 that are non-conforming, and there's 8 that are less than 10 acres, so less than double the acreage for a detached ADU. And there are 48 total. But 15 of those are exempt, so owned by the town, owned by the state, forestry, that kind of thing. And as far as the biggest district, the rural residential district. Let's see, that's commercial. There are 71 non-conforming lots, but again, some of those are in PRDs. And 668 total properties. Again, some of those are
Yeah.
not, some of those are farmland or exempt. So about 11% of our rural residential are non-conforming.
So this is all good data for a forum for the townspeople to know how many pre-existing non-conforming lots there are. A lot of them have already been built on.
Right.
So they can't be built on any further,
Yeah, most of these are.
but this is all good stuff to bring to a forum for everybody to kind of get a handle on where we are.
Yeah.
With housing in Temple. So I will work with Jessica and we'll try to come up with something and then I'll present it to you guys and you can add to it or take it away, whatever you want to do.
Sounds good.
Yep, we're not rushing. We won't be accused of rushing. We're gonna be focused this year on this though,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
We're gonna be focused and we'll see what happens.
So if there's no objections, I'm just going to ask the people in the room, was there anything from the list of concerns from the last hearing that I didn't cover go ahead, Cam. Can you use the microphone?
Realizing that we might really get into the weeds on this tonight, I started looking up a lot about ADUs, which I find interesting anyway. And first of all, I think the idea of having a conditional use permit is really important because when you get to the detached, there are a lot of little details that just won't even fit on a building permit. But that aside, there's the law 674, 71 to 33. And then right after it was promulgated in 2017, NHMA and some of the other authorities on this sort of thing, which represent the state, their state organizations, wrote fairly heavy analyses of this statute with suggestions and assumptions and so forth. And now Christine's gone and talked to a lawyer about it, and he disagrees with some of these things. And then we know that probably the state is going to drop a few more little gems on us about this. So I think it would be prudent not to rush forward, putting together anything too tight or even a form, because all of these are really very quicksandy right now. I mean, there's things just in total conflict and some which are more vague. Anyway, I think they're a good idea. I also think that the attached present far fewer issues than detached from a point of view of forms, construction, et cetera, et cetera. So it may be easier in a way to work on them, not necessarily for presentation separately, but as separate things, because they really entertain very different subject matter in the terms of land use. An attached or even an internal ADU isn't too much different from a new bathroom or a porch. It's not a big deal. Detached starts turning into something else. So I will put together what my thoughts are and give them to you or Bruce just to have. But I will be watching this with great interest closely. And I am particularly interested to see what the 400 committee in Concord does with it all.
Thank you. Go ahead, John.
So I think I listened pretty carefully along with other people to your presentation from your, I guess, a phone conversation or
Yeah, it was a
meeting
phone
with
call.
Driscoll.
Mhm.
And Driscoll's somebody we've gotten to know. Some of his comments are inconsistent with some of the documents that Bruce was looking at, showing perhaps a lack of experience in this area. So I'd be extremely careful with advice from Attorney Driscoll, number one. Just a comment on the forum, and I really think this is headed in a good direction. So I applaud you for changing course here. Just want to be sure, Bruce has mentioned working with, I forgot her name.
Ivy?
No.
Carol? Oh,
No.
Jessica.
Jessica.
Jessica,
I'd want to be sure that you don't structure this forum so tightly that people feel that they didn't get a chance to talk about what they wanted to talk about. So I remember Ted Petro in the past volunteering to run forums, and I'm not volunteering Ted because he'd probably shoot me, but Ted's, everybody knows Ted. His personality is very low key and inviting, and not limiting the amount of time people have to talk, because people have a lot to say about our zoning generally, positive and opportunities for change, and particularly about ADUs now. I mean, obviously, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, the temperature has gone up on ADUs, and I did have a chance today to drive around and take a look at just a couple of properties that have been mentioned. And I didn't go on the property or anything like that, but a detached ADU on these properties would be very detrimental to adjacent property owners. They'd be looking at it
Are you
in
talking
their,
about non-conforming lots?
excuse
Are you
me.
talking specifically about non-conforming lots, or just? in
No,
general?
not specifically. Just the way people have laid out their land based on one house, one lot, so this would have a big impact on Temple. So, and I'll repeat the comment I made, one of them about Nashua, where I grew up. And it's really sad to see what's happened to what had been a really rural area of Nashua. So thanks for taking it in a new direction.
Go ahead, Gail. Just do a few more minutes.
What I'm going to say is a little bit like what John was saying. I am concerned about the detached ADUs, the effect that it has on neighbors. In other words, we have a lot of very congested, dense areas in Temple. I had, if you looked at maps 5A and 5B, the area. It's up around Colburn Road, for example. There are a lot of 3-acre lots where there, if you turn around and look at it there now, a lot of those lots are designed with the minimum 300 foot frontage, and they're very close. So if you were to put detached ADUs on some of those lots, they will wind up very close to their neighbors. And I am concerned that we need to do something to protect neighbors themselves from what a homeowner might wish to do. I had thought of one thing that could be done, which is to have different setbacks on the sides or on the back. If you have a 300-foot frontage in the front, then maybe you could have 100 required on each side of the detached ADU all the way around. That at least would get it away from the edge of the property, which would impinge on the next door neighbor. It's a thought. I think we need to consider how densely we do have some of our town. Almost 20% of our town is on maps 5A and 5B. That's a lot. And so when you start doing the detached ADUs, you have to consider what effect it will have on other people. Thank you.
So again, Gail, I don't know if you heard me say earlier, but if we changed the setbacks for ADUs, detached ADUs, we would have to change it for
Well, that's an idea.
single family
mean,
homes as
Yes.
well.
I mean, I think you need to reconsider whether you're going to let the ADUs, the detached ones, exist on such small lots to begin with. And that would be my first choice.
Yeah.
There must be other choices and we could do if we really do need other more housing in Temple, to not go to all of these detached ADUs. But if you had to go to the detached ADUs, do something to protect the neighbors. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and
But that would not be my first choice. My first choice is not to have them at all on a 3-acre lot.
And just to say again, we have to be consistent, in our zoning, that whatever applies to single family homes by right applies for ADUs as well. So we can't have special requirements for detached ADUs as far as setbacks are concerned, unless we also do it for single family homes.
Well, if that's the case, then I would say we don't do the detached ADUs. That would be my choice. Thank you.
So is there anything new is it a new comment, Connie?
Well, it's still a follow-up, and I'm sure you guys have all read these documents.
Yep.
And they all talk about some of the issues that you're questioning. One, I can't say encourage, but they always say you can certainly use if you're putting up a detached, you can increase the lot size.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
Right.
clear.
right, but not the setbacks.
Well, they also talk about that you should, maybe it's not setback, but talk about location. It could be close to the other house. Do you? And yeah, right now I'm leaning towards special exception instead of, just because of what Russ said is, I think neighbors' considerations should be a big factor in the decision about what this goes through. I mean, people move here for their peace and quiet. To have another house right in their backyard is offensive and very well could detract in their property value. So you can smile all you want, but I don't believe the town really, this is what the town wanted. And I just think you need to be more careful when you're reading this information and read it from everybody's perspective, not just Ivy Vance.
I don't think Ivy Van consulted with us on the ADUs. So I think we'll close the public comment and we'll take more when we have something to present to the public in the future. Is there any other comments from the board? Okay. Upcoming webinars and conferences, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, the one for planning lunches at noon, which is, I think, this Thursday, and it's just about the state legislative proposals that have come up so far. That's all I'm aware of at the moment. And is there any other business from the board?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. George?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
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 Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.